Hello, hello, hello. What is going on, family? It is so exciting. I'm just cheesing. It's something about seeing the sun coming through. I'd have been outside. I touched a little grass, y'all, and not the Mary J. Blige edition, but I was able to touch touch a little grass, honey. It is good and great here. Welcome to Brave Voices in Education podcast, where brilliance and boldness meets healing and hustle. I'm Craig Aarons Martin. I'm an educator and advocate and curator of some courageous conversations in a space for those who refuse to shrink. I hope you really enjoy this hot cup of courage, y'all. Baby, we got a guest. I'm just so excited. So let's go ahead and brave it together. So today's guest is more than a colleague. She's one of my village mentors, someone who moves with quiet brilliance, grounded clarity, and a kind of bold that doesn't need to shout to be heard. Allison Rodman is the founder and chief learning officer of the Learning Loop, a globally reaching consulting firm that helps schools, districts, and organizations create professional learning that is personalized, purposeful, and paradigm shifting, baby. Yeah, she is not changing how educators learn. She's changing what we believe is possible when adults come together to grow. She's the author of 2 powerhouse books. Here's one of them, Still Learning, baby. And can you see them tabs? You see them tabs, baby. I know y'all like, Craig, I'm only listening to this on the radio. Yes. But if you see us, I'm saying, got the book in hand and professional personalized professional learning. And she's walked the walk as a teacher, coach, school leader, director of professional learning across every kind of school setting you can name. She also serves as a faculty member for ASCD. She's a framework specialist with the Danielson Group and an innovative learning expert with Catalyst Ed. But what makes Allison's voice brave isn't just her credentials, y'all. It's her commitment to making learning feel alive again. I know that she's recently stepped outside of her comfort zone to develop and film a TED style talk, which is on LinkedIn, baby. That was all that just gave me all the feels. She shared her story as well as her soul with the world because she believes this work matters, because she believes in us. Allie, welcome to Brave Voices in Education. You know I already adore you, but today I'm excited for the world to hear just a slice of your story. How's your heart, my friend?
Oh my goodness, Craig, thank you so much for the incredibly warm welcome. As always, it is an absolute joy to have an opportunity to connect. I'm sending you all the virtual hugs through the screen. I know we're both on the East Coast, but still way too far apart. And it's been too long since we've connected in person, but at least we have an opportunity to have these really meaningful conversations together. So thank you so much for the invitation this morning. And I'm super excited to be able to connect with you as well as all the listeners today.
Awesome. So I just want to get into it just a little bit for those who are just being introduced to you in conversation today. Could you give us a little bit more of a backdrop on like who is Allison Rodman at this point in life? How should we start to visualize your journey in our mind's eye for those who are listening to this in the radio on their walk today, and those who might actually see us here on the screen?
Absolutely. So I continue to be a constant learner. That's who I was as a teacher, as a leader. It's who I am as a partner now in this space where if you were to see me, I've always got kind of that audiobook in my ear, or I'm, listening to podcasts and really connecting with folks in thoughtful ways because I'm incredibly intentional about not allowing the learning to stop. I recognize that particularly as adults, we're learning more and more about how our brains work and how we process and how identities shift and shape over time. So it's really important to me that my learning as a leader not be stagnant in the space. So that's the first thing that people should know is, I'm always kind of digging into the next content, the next idea, but also being thoughtful about where it fits in the space. The second thing that folks should know is that I'm also a mom. I'm a mom of 3 amazing kids who are at completely different developmental levels. So I've got a 3rd grader, a 9th grader, and a 12th grader. And my husband's also a teacher, which brings this whole kind of learning cycle together. That's how we met. It very much kind of fuels our partnership and our family dynamic, where learning just has become a part of the space. But my work now really focuses on how we help professionals in schools, in districts, as well as in nonprofit organizations and businesses continue to grow in meaningful, thoughtful, and personalized ways so that you're not sitting in the same old, one size fits all sit and get trainings and meetings, but instead really having an opportunity to engage with colleagues in ways that not only fuel your fire, but also help you to accelerate your growth personally and professionally.
I really appreciate that. And I could say for me, I know I've been trying to go back in my mind, like how long have we known each other? And I want to say it's been at least a decade. I know a lot of our journey has been with like ASCD, and so ASCD, for those who are like, well, what is that? A global membership organization centered around all things whole child, all things whole educator, and more. And for me, there has been something really powerful about learning with you, but learning from you in regards to just how you have been able to have us think about our brains and how our brains are thinking about work. How do we actually center ourselves in the midst of the journey? And I know and this is one of the things that's tabbed in my copy of Still Learning that I love and adore. And I go back to it often. You say our commitment to still learning as educators is as much about pause as it is about progress. Some of our most meaningful work does not emerge from a flurry of activity, but rather from time to step back, reflect, and be still. And so I think about that a great deal, and was thinking about that as a great deal when I made a decision to step out of a full time gig as an educator. I know I talked to you in early stages of thinking about that, and then on the other side of it. And so I'm curious for you as you look at where we are in education. Your kids are, also being impacted in this moment, right? And I know that you've had an opportunity to be a global force for so many educators, but you're also now mom who's also school committee member, school board member. You're really in different pockets, and you're seeing many different facets of this education experience right now. And so I'm curious for you, when you pause and you look at the state of where we are in education, you look at how your kids are also evolving in the systems, because they're at every level of the system right now. And you also think about your position as not just mom, but also as a leader who's also steering a community in regards to how they see this thing of education. I'm curious what's surfacing for you from any of those different lenses and experiences.
So, one of the things that continues to come up across different sectors, Craig, is that we're not filtering out things that are no longer important, right? So, I know that you and I have had conversations before kind of about another element of still learning where I talk about filtering with fences. Like, and it's
Yes.
very much kind of grounded in August Wilson's, play of fences of, they serve a dual purpose. They keep certain things in that are really important to us, but then they also keep things out that are less important. And one of the trends that I see across sectors is that we're just not filtering very well. We are in information overload, right? I can't tell you how many emails I get from school and PTA and all of the things. Like I was joking with our superintendent the other day. I said, I'm a pretty organized person. And like, even I'm getting confused and dropping the balls at some point. And then on the other side, you have folks saying, well, we're not getting enough information. We need all the details about that, which is respectable, right? We want to be transparent. We want to be informed. We want to make sure that we're making really smart decisions. But we also need to recognize that we've got to kind of ground ourselves and keep some of the extra ness away. So I think we've approached this point in education, particularly from a pedagogical side, from a student side, that we keep on adding the new things, right? The next silver ball, the next, perfect bullet that's going to solve all of our problems. But we haven't taken that pause to be really thoughtful, step back and say, okay, but what were the old practices that were the appropriate, the respectful, the responsible decision at the time based on the information that we had, but just aren't serving us well now in this space? And to give ourselves permission to have those honest conversations and filter out some of those previous practices to allow time and space for ones that might be stronger or might be more effective now to really take root and be sustainable, as opposed to just kind of be that next flavor of the week or the next wave, or the thing that we follow. Because if we don't do that, if we don't take time for that pause, then it's not going to really ground itself. It's not going to really work. And then we're going to be on to the next thing before we know it.
I know for me, as I sit with, like, this morning I sent a couple of text messages to leaders who are like we're right on the cusp of the end of the year. And they are managing a lot of emotions from the entire community, trying to hold the community together until they get to the last day. And so I know in this work of like alignment, we're in this really interesting place of having to, dare bravely to make a choice to live into, exemplify, and lead with our values, lead with what, feels most important for us. But there may feel like there's a consequence and a cost that's associated with making a decision to be in alignment. And I know you talk about alignment from a professional perspective, but I know that I've also taken it and sat at the water and really personally found myself grounded with some of the tools and frameworks that you've shared with us and still learning. I'm curious for you, how are you navigating multiple systems where you as a mom, you as a a school community member, you as a professional developer of folks and coach and whatnot? And I'm really curious, how are you navigating this education space with your values, especially in environments that may not necessarily be aligned, as you just spoke about, uh, filtering with fences, but also being centered on this is what's true of my core values and how I move in the space.
So part of that has been, Craig, as much letting go as it is letting in. And I know that, seems a little bit repetitive to my previous response, but I'll give some concrete examples of that. So for me, I served 3 terms on the school board, so 9 years with my community, and it's a very small community. So as you can imagine, like, you're getting hit with school board staff at the sidelines of the soccer game as well as in the grocery store, and it's a lot. It's a lot, particularly in a community that really is involved in the best possible way and cares deeply about their children's education. So one of the sort of step backs for me was when it came time to kind of, put in the nomination petition this past summer. I said, you know what, I need to take a pause. I need to, take this time off to really kind of see a new perspective in education. 9 years kind of sitting in a variety of those board seats. My Our son graduates, in just a couple weeks, and I wanted to sit in the stands and not on the field, right? I wanted to have that experience as a parent. So I think, being mindful of when it's time to dig in and get involved, right? So when do you kind of stop being the keyboard warrior behind the scenes and actually be the volunteer that steps up, or the one that has that crucial conversation and doesn't just send that sort of late night email? When is the time to kind of dig in there and be brave? But also, when is the time to be brave and say, you know what, I've done some really good work in this space, and it's okay for me to take this energy and focus it in different ways. So I know that for both of us, being outdoors really really grounds us and helps us kind of recenter. And kind of stepping away from some of the board responsibilities has allowed me to be even more involved with, both of my daughter's Girl Scout troops and getting them more into the outdoors so that I'm able to connect with them, but also recenter and strengthen myself in a different type of way for this work, so that I show up as an even stronger partner to my clients, that I'm able to kind of be that full person for my family and also re-engage with some friends that, I've kind of been missing along the way. So being brave is as much kind of stepping out and digging in as it is saying, you know what, I've done the work here, and it's okay to step away and perhaps, go off the deep end in a different space.
I would agree. It's interesting that some of the themes of what you're sharing actually was part of my devotional yesterday. I was the yesterday's message was not moved but anchored, and centered on Jeremiah 17:8 for those who are, that you follow the word in whatever ways as part of your center. And three key takeaways that I really am still processing is that one, if I'm centered on what I value and who I am, it doesn't mean that I'm passive. And so just knowing that people have very interesting ways to still be bold and brave, and aligned in their values, but don't necessarily have to be flashy in regards to how they go about that work. I also think about the fact that we're in an environment that feels like there's so many things that are being removed from people,
Mhm.
because we're seeing executive orders, we're seeing that policies are changing, we're seeing people losing their the roles that they've held on to, that have moved the country, moved their community in different ways. But also, again, like that focuses on, like, it may feel like there's a drought of hope because everything feels nutty and crazy, but there is, if we understand that we're rooted to something greater, that it may appear that the leaves have fallen, but there's still life within the center of who we are, the source that we may go to, and fruit will continue to find itself being bore if we stay rooted to this work. And I know that some of the fruit that you plant before many educators across across your career, you have actually um, really pushed us, to think about process. And so, my question for you is, you've coached thousands of adults through learning, but I'm curious, what have you learned about yourself when you have let go of this thought process of what perfection looks like, and you embraced process?
So I will say that is something, as a like stereotypical type A person, I continue to struggle with, is that, progress over perfection, right? To be able to say, okay, it may not have been 110%, but it was 95. And I kind of put that work out there into the world for, for people to consume and be helpful. And I think that's something that a lot of educators struggle with, right? It doesn't matter what the position is. It's about being fully present for students. And because of that, because we're in this human focused work, that's not about creating widgets, but developing beautiful people, that
Okay.
it's really hard for us to let go of that idea of perfection, because we wake up every morning and it's like, how do I do it better? Right. I was kind of reflecting this morning before we jumped on together, and I was thinking about, what makes this profession truly unique. And, we often think about a doctor at the top of their craft. And in essence, that doctor is diagnosing one patient in a room at a time and taking action. And it doesn't matter whether you are a teacher, a school leader, a district leader, you are diagnosing a whole heck of a lot more people every minute of every day in an incredibly human facing way, where there's no computer to hide behind. There's no screen or, curtain to sort of pull in front. Like, you are there with those people, diagnosing what their needs are, thinking about the most thoughtful and strategic action to take to accelerate their progress. And I mean, that is like the ultimate process orientation, right? Is being able to kind of see that over time. So for me, it's just kind of having that constant reminder in my own processes to say, okay, you know, did you move from step A to step B? Sort of. Okay, it's not perfect, but that was still some forward progress, even if you didn't get exactly where you wanted to be today.
I think about that this morning, and I also think about, I had a really great conversation with my physical fitness coach. So today's Friday, so that was Wednesday, and he and I generally have a good banter that goes back and forth. about, I'm a stickler for, I just want to know what we're doing. I, want to protect these 40 plus year knees because, honey, I can't twerk in the club like I used to.
Yep.
But, I want to preserve them if I feel like the weekend I want to get my boots on the ground. And what he, at some point, I was just like, okay, I really am trying to understand what's happening here because he wanted to, in his mind's eye, he wanted to ensure that he could go through a process of just pushing me just to see how I would respond to different exercises because he wanted to see how my body would respond. But he didn't articulate that. And I was like, look, at this point, I am actually trying to figure out where we are and what's going on. And he just said, well, let me help you break down this process. And so for him, he needed me to understand that one, he held what is true to me about what it said I needed in regards to tone and discipline and consistency and advice on how to shape and tone my body to respond in ways that are necessary. But he also reminded me that if I slowed down, it would be amazing what I would experience from a time under tension perspective, to breathe through things, to actually pause and be in the rep, be in the moment. And so I appreciate the fact that as we talk about process, I think again, professionally and personally, people can really be can find themselves overrun with trying to do multiple processes, engage in multiple things at the same time, and never find themselves either sated or satisfied, or probably overwhelmed and anxious because they've not just saw the process through. And so, as I think about, some of the first lessons I learned with you and in our wonderful community, personalized learning is your signature. I'm curious, what's one lesson that life personalized just for you?
Interesting one. It's going to take me a minute on that one, Craig. Hold on. Wow. I had like all my notes on the side. I was like, oh, wait, hold on. I got that. I got that. What did life personalize just for me? I I think for me, it's given me an opportunity to really think about, not the balance. You know that I hate that word, right? Like we're never fully balanced in the things that we do. Sometimes I am like 150% work and then like 50% family. And that's just kind of the way that life shakes out. And I've told people, it's not about having it all. It's about having enough. Am I enough of a parent right now? Am I enough of a, partner right now? Am I enough of a professional right now in this moment? And I think, what life has personalized for me is the opportunity to be really focused and intentional about that, to be able to kind of step back in my craft and do number one, what I love every single day, right? I don't think there's, a lot of people that can say, wow, I wake up every day and I love what I do. And I think that, is just the ultimate gift for me to be able to show up and be fully present because even the bad days are good in some ways, right? Even the rough ones can be pretty amazing. And I think what it's also personalized for me is this really amazing network. So when I was kind of preparing for our conversation, there were like three specific notes that I made for myself about things that I wanted to make sure to share. And we've touched on, a number of them already. So you just talked about being really focused and intentional. And that was one that I definitely kind of captured. The other is being fully present. So with all of the stimuli that keeps like coming at us, I feel like we're just not present in the moment. And as a result, the interactions that we do have aren't fueling our soul and giving us that sense of fulfillment the way that they should, because our brains are just going in a million different directions and we're not taking the time to be grounded and present in that moment. But the third one that I wrote down is the need to be relationship driven. And I think that's, what life has really personalized for me is just this amazing network of individuals, both personally and professionally, where I truly can be relationship driven and reach out to folks if I'm struggling, with a particular professional challenge, but then also have individuals to lean on in my personal spaces. And I think what's been particularly magical over the course of the past decade or so is watching those two communities converge.
Yeah.
so that I'm, blessed to have the opportunity to say that my professional friends, my professional, folks and colleagues truly are my friends, and vice versa. So that's, really what I'm feeling is kind of that bless of personalization in so many different aspects of my work.
It's beautiful when they come together.
It is. I had an opportunity to meet with some of our mutual friends yesterday, and it's kind of the same thing, right? Like you can show up as a complete train wreck or show up as your, most amazing self.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter, right? And it's to the point where it's been one of those norms that I now establish with new communities and new networks that I join to say, like, hey, can we just kind of show up as we are? Whether that's me, like, coming from the gym as a hot mess because I've like actually got in that workout that I was pushing to, or you know what, I just got off, I just finished presenting this keynote and I'm like fully, full hair, full makeup, the whole bit. But having that authenticity, regardless of our communities that we're a part of, to be able to show up as our full selves and be, driven by those relationships and those connections, I think is so incredibly important, particularly given where we are right now.
I agree. It is incredibly nourishing to be in community, like be in community with our mutual friends virtually, but in person is just it's just a whole different experience. I'm just saying, and I hope that for those who are on the fence, on the cliff, burned out, at their own personal crossroads, that one of the things that I know I'm still working through is when I get stressed and anxious and more, I find myself like repelling from being in community with folks because one, I try to not be selfish and be like, well, I need time for some, like, I need space where people could just be with me and I could pour and just, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that because I don't want, you know, I don't want people to feel as if I am just dumping on them. But I also recognize that sometimes people want to actually be in community with you to navigate and talk through the tough stuff as well as the good stuff, and it's okay, and that there's a opportunity there for that friend, that other person, to actually see themselves as a value add to you because you have allowed them to be part of your village, which is so important. um, I would love to lean in a little bit about the recent post you made on LinkedIn to just really talk about this fearless communicators. I will actually share something with you. I had a moment with you where we were in Pennsylvania. It was me and Crystal, Dr. Crystal, who is again a mutual friend, love and adore. We both had an opportunity to do many collaborations, experience many things with Krista, love and adore her. There was a moment where Krista and I were doing a fireside chat in Pennsylvania among that wonderful community of educators. And Krista and I practiced, and we were like crystal clear, like this is how we're gonna go. But there was something about actually standing before folks or sitting before folks and navigating a terrain I never been in regards to doing a fireside chat in the way we were doing it, not necessarily knowing and having a pulse on the audience, and still having to feel wedded to like us bearing like the audience bearing witness to how Krista and I engage in meaningful conversations about wellness and social emotional learning and just our personal and professional journeys, and how this may be a mirror to some of the experiences for folks in the space. I was shell shocked in that moment. I lost like whatever were my points of like this is what I want to convey. I found myself mentally awash, which is rare for me. I generally know where I'm going or I can find my way through it, but people don't may not be aware that at times I'm also an introvert and I'm like deathly afraid that I'm going to say the wrong thing or not sound eloquent enough as some of the like you or Krista or some of the other folks I love and adore who are incredible speakers and seem to wrestle language into such meaningful ways that folks are just astounded. And I'm just like, look, baby, I just put a little sauce on it. We'll see whether or not, it tastes good to you in your spirit. I when I saw the visual of you, blue background, I believe, if I'm not
Got
mistaken.
it.
You are on this stage, this platform, and you share a personal journey of about you communicating out to the world, your message, you know what you wanted the world to experience with you. And you curated this experience, especially to face a fear, right?
Mhm. Yep.
And so I would love for you, if you're okay, just giving us a little bit more color to like what made you decide to do this, and what were some of the things you were thinking about as you are now about to open up this wonderful experience before people.
So, we talked earlier about me being a constant learner and really engaging in reflection and thinking about how do I continuously show up in new spaces? How do I push myself? What does the next layer of the work look like? And over the past couple of years, I've been doing some really amazing keynotes with folks and had the opportunity to have a lot of fantastic partnerships with organizations. But one of the things that I felt I could be even better at was my work as a storyteller and really weaving those stories for me personally, as well as the opportunities I've had professionally with schools and districts into those speaking spaces in a way that was even more powerful. But as a typical type A, right, I kind of sat on it and I was like, oh, no, no, like we got this. We're going to be okay. And then I was like, no, like you feel that calling in the back of your head of like, Allie, you got more to give. You can push, this is totally outside your comfort zone, but let's do this. So yeah, I kind of took a jump off the deep end of the pool, so to speak. And I worked with this amazing organization called Fearless Communicators,
Mhm.
based in New York City, but they have coaches working around the world to support individuals. And it's really about partnering with thought leaders to help them shape their message in a way that connects more deeply with folks. And that was really important to me, was to take the work that I've done and not just let it sit on the shelf. Certainly continue to facilitate workshops and courses, but how do I be a better storyteller and really craft that message in a way that was going to stick? So it was quite the experience for me. I was literally doing improv via Zoom during our first session. Like, talk about outside of your comfort zone for a teacher who's used to having like lessons and units and all these kinds of things planned ahead of time. No slide decks at all in this experience. So for a visual learner, that was also like terrifying of like, how do I keep the images in my head and really convey what I want to without kind of that picture behind me. But then also thinking about things like presence and where I was standing and where was I looking, how was I communicating, how was I being, again, fully present in that space. It was perhaps one of the best experiences I've had as a professional because it really pushed me to think about not just my message, but that importance of connection and how was I connecting, yes, with the people in that live audience, but also with folks across mediums. So we were live streaming at the same time. We knew that it was going to kind of be produced in video form afterwards. But I'm now super excited to take a lot of those storytelling things that I had read about in books, but have now experienced with this incredible staff of professionals, many of whom were former actors and actresses and are still professional speakers themselves, to now think about what is that next layer of the work and how do I continue to take the ideas that not only I have crafted over time, but I've also collected and curated by so many amazing educators in my network and bring them forward in a much more powerful way to hopefully more and more people over time. So incredibly scary, but I would also do it again in a heartbeat. So it's such a good experience.
Wow. I will make sure for folks who are listening, the link to the post will be in the show notes, so you can check out Allie's account of her experience in it, and it's also connected to the Fearless Communicators um entity organization as well, for those who might want to check this out a little bit more. I only have one more question for you before we kind of close, which is centered on, there are moms who are listening to this who are finding a connection to you being a mom, and just really having them to think about, you know, their positionality in their child or children's lives and how they are, advocates for their children. There are folks who are also educators who are going to be listening to this, who are thinking about purpose, thinking about alignment, thinking about, where they want to be in the next year, 2 years, 3 years. They're also thinking about, how do I want to move more courageously in my own experience to grow my craft? And that could be something as simple as wrestling through stage fright, being in front of a professional development audience because you're going to talk for 15 minutes about a thing you love to do, but you've been asked to share that before, 15 people in a room, and now you're like, gosh, all these eyes are on me. Or there may be some folks who are listening and are staunch advocates in their own communities around what they feel is right and setting a vision for the children they serve, the young people who are in their community, the educators who are in their community, the parents who are part of their community, and how people are shaping policy or shaping experiences that'll feel inclusive and welcoming and centered to that community. For those who might be looking for their own cup of courage today, may want to dare greatly a little bit more in their own personal and professional journey, what would you offer to them to take away from what you've shared with us today, or just something that is sitting and residing with you right now?
So in this work of being brave, for me, Craig, there's really two steps, and that's, that feels like oversimplified in a way, but I truly believe that it's kind of rooted in two, really intentional moves. And one is first and foremost showing up. So whether you're a parent, who shows up in the morning with that little toddler because that's their best time of day to like play with them and be there for them, or if you've got kids at the other end that seem to want to have like those really heartfelt conversations at 11 o'clock at night when all you want to do is go to bed, or you're the educator that is completely burnt out, just being thoughtful about how do I need to fill my cup in other ways, whether it's through rest, or rejuvenation or connection, just to be able to show up so that I'm there, I'm fully present in that space for myself, but also for the people who need me. And the second piece is to get that cup of coffee, right? So that cup of coffee can mean a lot of different things across the spectrum, but I think sometimes we defer to like the quick text with our kids, or, the quick kind of, conversation in the hall and with our colleague, instead of sitting down and having that really meaningful conversation. And I'm not saying this has to be like, a 3 hour happy hour, or, you've got to block out a whole weekend, but can you make the time to have lunch together? Can you make the time to sit down at the table and have dinner with the family, like at least one night a week, even when you're moving in a million different directions? But what is it going to mean for you, not just to show up, but to have that coffee and foster true connection, not just passes in the night or in the morning or in the hallway, but instead, that relationship driven action that's going to help you to know that person at a deeper level and to really have that sense of connection and meaning that I think is so important to all of us, because that's how we show up and we're brave, is that those connections are driving us and also giving us the courage to have the crucial conversation, to make the tough decision, even when it feels like there are so many different things coming at us from other directions. So show up and get the coffee.
All right. I got mine.
Yeah, I'm ready for like refill number two. So we're good. Yeah.
Cool, Allie. Well, I appreciate this offer. I hope folks appreciate that offer as well. Before I let you go, I just want to quickly play a game of what I call Brave or Nah. And this
Okay.
is just a game just to, just kind of pulse how bold you might be in some of your life experiences. Just things that are, random, might be ridiculous, but absolutely real. So I'm just curious, have you ever played your favorite song on a loudspeaker at a staff meeting? And just let it rock. And if so, what was that track?
Oh my god, I have like the most eclectic taste in music. I wouldn't even know where to start. Like, um, no, I haven't. As a matter of fact, I was just about to reach out to some amazing professional learning designer friends of mine and be like, "Whoa, my music game is totally lacking. Like, give me some stuff."
Okay.
Um, but I will say that I have been loving kind of having my chill time with my daughter listening to Gracie Abrams. She's just been like amazing at kind of helping us forge our relationship a little bit more deeply. And then, oh my goodness, on the inspiration side, I'm not even sure where to start. We're going to put it in the show notes because I'm going to think about that.
No, that's good. I think that a couple of songs from Gracie does like "Close to You." I think is on the latest album, right? From "The Secret of Us," and I think "Risk" is also another great track
Yeah.
from
So
that album.
it's been great. We got to go to the concert together, with one of her friends. And I think just kind of again, that relationship, that bond of being, kind of outside in a different space was super awesome.
Nice. Are you the type to book a spontaneous family weekend trip with no itinerary, just vibes and fruit snacks?
Heck no. That is like the complete opposite. Okay. I kid you not. Our trips to Disney have like 20 tab Excel spreadsheets that like tell us not only like where our dining reservations are and what rides and parks we're doing every day, but I literally like plan out our family outfits so they're color coordinated in our pictures. Oh, it's ridiculous. Like I'm not ashamed to admit it. Like it's obnoxious.
Mm, okay.
So no, that is the complete opposite of where I am. Yes.
Um, can you name the last food you experienced that you could not actually pronounce the name of
Whew, I can't name it. So
it?
my sister and I went out for happy hour a few weeks ago, actually in North Philly, like right around where my former school was. And there was this ingredient in one of the like happy hour drinks that we were looking at, and like neither of us knew what it was. So we're like scrolling on our phone to look it up. I still couldn't tell you, but um, yeah, these are okay. These are tough questions. I like them.
Okay. My last question, because I want to make sure I honor your time, and you got plenty to do. Would you prefer full out karaoke with friends and family, or be pulled onto the stage with Gracie Adams for one actual song to co-sing with?
Oh my goodness. So my daughter would hate me for saying this, but I would go for the full-on karaoke over Gracie Abrams. She's never going to forgive me for this response, but oh my goodness. So I cheered in college, and I continue to keep in touch with all of my teammates. We actually just met a few months ago back on campus and had a great opportunity, like reconnecting. We did karaoke like it was nobody's business, right? So that is such like a positive memory for me, but also something that I continue to do with friends today. So I'm sorry, Aislinn, I need to let Gracie go. And yeah, it would be the karaoke for me.
Wasn't expecting that, but cool. Okay, all right. You shocked me on that one too.
There you go.
How can folks stay connected to you, learn more about your journey, or bring your work to their organization?
So you are welcome to check out my website, www.thelearningloop.com. I am also across social media at The Learning Loop. And you are always welcome to jump on my website, schedule time for us to connect. I'm incredibly excited to be a thought partner for folks. So even if you've just got that burning question and you're like, oh, I just want somebody to kind of, share some ideas back and forth, never hesitate to do that. As I said, I'm a constant learner. I want to be there for folks. So, show up, get the coffee. Let's form a relationship.
Oh, Allie, thank you so much for joining the Brave Voices in Education family. I appreciate you. Just again, you're here. Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation. It's always a joy to reconnect and catch up. I'm hoping this kind of resonated with folks a little bit and that we can continue the conversation.
Absolutely. All right, fam. So that's a wrap for this episode of Brave Voices in Education. If something stirred in you today, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with your village, your team, your mentor, your brave ones. Because brave leadership, just being brave is tough. It's not about the title, it's about the testimony. Because you never know on the other side of that test, that actually could be someone's light source. If you're building bold classrooms, curriculum with teeth, or schools that love louder than they punish, we want to hear from you. Come be a guest, grab some guides, check out the description because there's going to be all kind of good stuff for you. Come be a part of the movement at bravevoicespod.com. Until next time, generate your own joy, never go it alone, get free, and always love your brave.